Imagine waking up, making your morning coffee, and watching your own funeral on your phone. That's exactly what happened to Maya. Her parents stood at the podium, weeping. Her photo sat beside a casket. Friends and family mourned her, but she wasn't dead. She was alive, watching in silence, heart pounding, wondering, why would they fake my death? What she uncovered next was darker than betrayal. This is the story of a woman buried by her own blood, and the moment she walked back in to reclaim her name, you're going to want to hear every word. You ever get a message that just changes everything? I was standing in my kitchen, pouring coffee. You know, that quiet part of the morning when the world hasn't really started yet. And then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mrs. Langford, our old neighbor. I hadn't heard that name in years? Just seeing it pop up gave me that weird feeling in my stomach. You know the one? Like something from the past just walked through the front door without knocking. There was no hi, no how are you? Just one line. I'm so sorry about your parents. I can't believe what I saw today. I stared at it for a second, then tapped the video. It was a church. St. Albans, verse. I knew it instantly. My parents used to drag me there every Christmas Eve when I was little. Candlelight services, choir in the loft, the works. The camera zoomed in, slowly. 2 people standing at the podium. And then, my heart stopped. It was them, my parents. My mother in black lace and pearls, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My father, stiff, holding a piece of paper, hands shaking. And behind them, a casket. Next to it, a huge photo of me, framed, covered in white lilies. I froze. I couldn't breathe. I whispered, No. But I couldn't look away. And then I heard my father's voice low, practiced, trembling just enough to seem real. She was always a troubled girl, but we loved her. We did everything we could. He was reading a eulogy, my eulogy. Though she left this world far too young, we pray her soul finally finds peace. And I'm just standing there, in my apartment, alive, breathing, shaking, watching my own funeral. I must have watched that video 10 times, looking for some signany thing to tell me this was a mistake, a misunderstanding. But no, their faces never changed. Their voices didn't crack. They weren't mourning. They were performing. And that's when I knew this wasn't grief. This was orchestration. I hadn't spoken to them in years, not since they disowned me, made me the family disgrace. But this was something else. They didn't just cut me off. They buried me. And you know the worst part? Everyone was there. Distant cousins, old friends, even my childhood piano teacher, all in black, all nodding, all believing I was gone. And not one of them had tried to call me, not even once. I pressed pause, stood in the middle of my kitchen, phone still in my hand, heart pounding, and that's when I whispered it out loud. For the first time, what the hell is going on? Because this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. And if they wanted me gone that badly, they were about to find out how alive I really was. Have you ever replayed a conversation in your head, on years after it happened? Not just the words, but the way they looked at you when they said it. Yeah, I still remember. I was standing in my parents' kitchen. Same tile floor I used to slide around in my socks as a kid. Now I was just trying to stand without shaking. My mother leaned in close. Her voice was quiet but sharp, like a needle dipped in sugar. Better one ruined daughter than 2. I didn't know what to say, didn't even understand what she meant. Not right away. But then I looked at my dad, and I'll never forget it. He didn't even look at me. He just said, "You humiliated us. You're no longer our daughter." That was 3 years ago. And just like that, I was gone. No suitcase. No backup plan. No goodbye. Just gone. You see, I didn't steal that money. I didn't even know there was money missing until it was too late. But someone did. Elena, my little sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She was reckless, addicted to some fake version of luxury she saw on Instagram. Designer bags, spa weekends, private spiritual retreats that cost more than my rent. And when the books didn't balance, when $80,000 disappeared from the family business account, they needed someone to blame. And it was convenient. I still remember that night. I sat in my childhood bedroom crying, confused, begging them to believe me. But the door never opened. No one came to listen. No one even checked. By morning, my bank account was frozen. My company email gone. My phone? Blocked. I was cut off, erased, like I'd never existed. I tried to fight back. At first, I called, texted, wrote letters. I even reached out to family friends. You know, the ones who used to hug me at BBQs and send me birthday cards with little smiley faces? Nothing. One by one, they disappeared. Doors closed. Phones rang once, then silence. Eventually, I stopped trying. What else do you do when the world decides you're a villain? I packed a bag, left the country, took a job at a Kiat cafe in Lisbon. Didn't post, didn't call, didn't even use my full name. Some days I didn't speak at all, just existed. And still, somewhere deep down, I waited. I waited for anyone to reach out, to say it was all a mistake, that they knew the truth now, that they were sorry. But that day never came. What came instead was a funeral, and with it, a rage I didn't know I had. Because this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about survival. They tried to write my ending, but I wasn't ready to die in their story. You ever feel like you're living, but the world decided you were gone? It started with something small. I was just trying to recover my old email account. I figured, maybe it's time to check in on the past. Maybe, just maybe, someone finally reached out. But when I tried to log in, I got this weird message. This account has been deactivated due to user decease. Decease? He blinked. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some system glitch. So I contacted support. They were polite, robotic. We're sorry for your loss. Our records show the user passed away on the 16th of July, 3 years ago. The account was flagged and closed following notification of death. I sat there, staring at the screen like it was mocking me. They had reported me dead. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, watching that funeral video over and over, listening to my father's fake voice, my mother's staged sobs. They weren't mourning, they were erased. The next morning, I opened my laptop and started digging. Public Records Office, State of Arkansas. I typed in my name, birth date, social security number, and then it popped up. Maya Dekwa. Status, deceased. Date of death, the 16th of July. Cows, car, accident. Certificate ID, RF 91,327. I felt cold, like someone had poured ice water down my spine. There it was, my death certificate. Filed, stamped, official. I hadn't just been cut off, I'd been legally buried. And here's the thing. I never owned a car, never had a license while I was abroad. I lived in tiny rentals, rode buses, walked to work. There was no accident, nobody, no crash, just a lee big enough to fit in a government file. I should have stopped right there, closed the laptop, moved on. But when your family kills you on paper, you start to wonder, what were they hiding that was worth killing me for? So I did what I hadn't done in years. I called Aunt Rachel. She used to sneak me candy under the dinner table when I was little. She always smelled like lavender and cinnamon. The phone rang twice. Then she answered. "Hello?" I froze, then said softly, "Aunt Rachel." "It's me. It's Maya." Silence. Then, click. She hung up. I called back. Blocked. Next, I tried my cousins. One sent a thumbs-up emoji. Never replied again. Another said, "Is this some kind of sick joke?" No one believed I was me. Except one. Sam, my youngest cousin. The one who used to follow me around with his toy camera and call me Spy Girl. He texted back cautious. "Maya, are you really alive?" "Yes. I need to know. What do they tell everyone?" Typing bubble. Blinking. Blinking. Then, they said you died in a car crash overseas. That your body couldn't be brought back. Cremation. Closed casket. I stared at the screen. Fingers numb. They had it all planned out. A full script. A cover story. And no one questioned it. That's when something inside me snapped. This wasn't grief. This wasn't denial. This was a cover-up. And if they were willing to bury me to protect their secret, I was ready to dig it back up. I don't know what I expected to find, but it wasn't that. It was a quiet night. One of those nights where sleep just won't come. So I opened Instagram. Not mine, of course. I hadn't posted in years, but hers. Elena. I don't know what made me type her name. Curiosity, maybe. Or pain looking for a place to land. And there she was. Public again. Not hiding. Not mourning. Thriving. Her profile was a glittering mess of filtered perfection. White roses. Champagne fountains. Soft piano music playing in the background of her reels. And in the middle of it all her, in a wedding dress, smiling like she'd just won the world. There were dozens of photos. The dress, the cake, the "Forever Starts Here" hashtag. And every picture looked like a slap in the face. Because they were all there. Aunt Rachel, my cousins, even Great Uncle Theothy, one who hadn't left his house in years. All smiling, all clinking glasses. And me? Not a single mention, not a single photo. Not even a Maya would have loved this. It was like I'd never existed. But then I saw it. A video, taken during the reception. Everyone was gathered around. A man stood next to Elena, her husband, and next to him, my father, holding a wine glass, speaking into a microphone, smiling, to the one daughter who always made us proud. The words hit like a punch to the ribs. And the worst part? He meant it. I dropped the phone. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. They didn't just forget me. They replaced me. I opened my laptop, went to the Arkansas Business Registry, typed in the family company, scrolled to ownership and beneficiaries, and my blood ran cold. Elena Dequa, sole inheritor, full control of the trust fund, the one our grandparents left for me, the college fund, the startup money, my future, transferred, quietly, 6 months after my death. And just like that, it all made sense. The lies, the funeral, the paperwork. This wasn't just a family falling apart. This was a heist. She didn't just mourn me. She monetized me. She crashed into my life, wore white, and toasted to my disappearance. I stared at her photo, sunlight in her hair, diamond flashing on her finger, and something inside me hardened. You buried me, Elena. Now it's my turn. You'd think that once you've seen your own funeral, you couldn't possibly be shocked again. But walking into that law office? Yeah, that came close. It was early. the kind of gray, overcast morning that feels like the world's holding its breath. The streets were still damp from last night's rain, and everything smelled like cold metal and wet cement. I hadn't slept. All night, my mind spun like a broken carousel. The trust fund, the wedding toast, to the one daughter who always made us proud. That line echoed in my skull like a curse, so I didn't wait. I printed everything, packed it into a folder thick, heavy, bursting with truth, and I walked. My boots slapped the sidewalk with every step, steady, certain, like a drumline before war. The law office was sterile glass, chrome, too clean. A receptionist in glasses looked up, startled. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said, holding up the folder. "But I have a death certificate, and I'm not dead." 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from a young attorney, fresh-faced, maybe early 30s. Tie too tight, hands fidgeting with a silver pen. He looked at the first page, the death certificate, then looked at me. And for a second, I saw it, that flicker in his eyes, like he wasn't sure if I was real. "You're challenging your own legal death?" "I'm not challenging it," I said. "I'm destroying it." I started laying it all out, one document at a time. Passport stamps, tax filings, lease agreements, bank records, employment contracts, photos with timestamps, boarding passes, old texts, utility bills, everything. The stack on his desk grew taller by the minute. My hands were trembling, but my voice, it was steady, sharp, like I'd waited years to speak. And now I wasn't going to waste a single word. He flipped through the pages slowly. Then I looked up. "This is unbelievable." "No," I said. "It's intentional." I watched his expression shift from doubt to awe to anger. They committed fraud. Falsifying a death record is a felony. And if assets were transferred, he trailed off. "Oh, they were," I said. And I slid across a screenshot from the state's business registry. Elena's name, shining where mine should have been. They buried me so she could inherit everything. He blinked, sat back in his chair. "We'll start with a fraud complaint, then a motion to revoke the death declaration. It'll take time, but I don't have time," I cut in. He frowned. "Why?" I leaned forward. My voice dropped to a whisper, "Because apparently, I have a memorial this Sunday." He stared at me, speechless. I think that's when he finally believed me, no, just the paperwork, but the weight of it all. I wasn't just here for legal status. I was here to take my life back. That night, I stood by the window of my apartment. City lights blinking like stars trapped in glass. My hands rested on the windowsill, cold from the rain seeping through tiny cracks. My breath fogged the glass in front of me. I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel powerful. I felt like someone who'd been set on fire and finally decided to stop burning in silence. A message came in. No name, no profile pic, just a single line. "They're holding your memorial this Sunday at St. Albans." I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. Didn't need to. I already knew the address. I remembered the way the pews creaked, the smell of old wood and incense, the stained glass window that used to throw red and blue shadows on my face every Christmas Eve. They picked that place on purpose. The same church, the same stage. But this time, I wasn't a picture in a frame. This time, I was the storm walking through the door. It was surreal, like walking into a play, where everyone knew their lines except me. St. Albans stood at the top of the hill like it always had, but that morning, it looked different, colder, like a stage set for betrayal. Cars lined the street like a grief parade. People in black, hugs, whispers, tissues tucked into sleeves. I stood across the street in a long coat and dark sunglasses. Invisible. And yet, it was all for me. Inside, the service had already started. The organ played something slow and sorrowful. The kind of song that lingers in your chest like leftover rain. Through the stained glass windows, I could see candlelight flickering. The soft glow of false morning. And at the front right under the pulpit was me. Well, a photo of me. Framed, adorned in lilies. The same photo they used on the obituary. I remembered the day it was taken. I was 22. Smiling, really smiling. Still believing in the people behind this charade. My father was at the podium. She was troubled, but we loved her. She lost her way, and though we couldn't reach her, his voice trembled just enough, almost convincing. We never stopped praying she'd come back to us. And my mother? Front row, black veil, lace gloves, dabbing tears with a lace-trimmed handkerchief like she was starring in an old soap opera. Her sobs were delicate, timed, perfect. Then came Elena, pearl necklace tight around her throat, a single hand on her chest, like it hurt to breathe. Maya was complicated, she said softly, voice breaking at all the right places. But she was my sister. I wish I could have said goodbye. Ali, wrapped in a tear, tied with a bow. I stepped forward, crossed the street. Every footstep sounded like thunder in my ears. And then I pushed the doors open. Crack. The sound echoed through the church like a clap of judgment. Wood groaned. Hinges moaned. And cold daylight poured in behind me like a spotlight from the grave. I walked in. Click, click, click. Heels on marble. Steady, deliberate. Heads turned. First, just a few. Then a ripple. Whispers sparked like dry leaves on fire. Is that? Number no, it can't be. Is she? My God. A little boy's voice broke the silence. Mom, isn't that her? I took off my sunglasses, and that's when the room gasped together. My mother's lips trembled. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed. Hard, theatrical, like she'd practiced it. My father's wine glass slipped from his hand. It shattered across the marble. Elena? She locked eyes with me, frozen, like a deer staring down headlights. Her pearls twisted in her grip. A half-full glass of champagne fell and splashed across her white suede heels. I kept walking, not rushing, not smiling, just moving forward, each step slicing through the silence like a blade. Phones lifted. One red dot blinked. Good. Let the world see. I reached the front, turned slowly, faced them all. Dozens of faces. Some are pale, some tear-streaked, some terrified. They looked at me like they were seeing a ghost. Maybe I was. Maybe I had died, just not the way they wanted. I looked at my photo, then to the priest. He stood frozen, his prayer book halfway open. I cleared my throat, just once. And then I spoke. I heard I died. But I'm here to correct the story. A woman in the back gasped. Someone whispered, She's real. She's alive. My God. But I didn't flinch. I reached into my coat and pulled out the folder. Thick. Stamped. Government sealed. I laid it on the podium like a judge dropping a verdict. These are my passport stamps. My employment contracts. Tax filings. Apartment leases. Medical records. I've been alive. I've been working. I've been surviving. The only thing I lost was you. I turned to my parents. You told the world I died. You faked the documents. You filed a certificate. And when I was legally gone, I turned to Elena. You handed everything to her. Elena's mouth opened. I raised my hand. Don't bother. Just enjoy the house you bought with my money. Murmurs exploded behind me. One cousin covered her mouth. Another man stood up. A phone caught the whole thing. Red light blinking. Good. Let the truth bleed into every corner they tried to keep clean. You didn't lose a daughter, I said, staring into my father's pale face. You threw her away. I turned back, faced them all, lifted my chin, and now you get to watch her walk back in. And then, without another word, I walked back down the aisle. Same pace, same steps. Only this time, every single person moved to get out of my way. As I reached the doors, the church bells rang. Low, hollow, final. How fitting. A funeral bell. But this time, not for me. You'd think the hard part was over, that walking into your own funeral would be the end of the storm. But in reality, that was just the thunder. Now came the lightning. The next day, I met with the lawyer again. Same desk, same folder. But this time, something was different. He looked at me like I was no longer a puzzle to solve, but a case to win. He laid out the plan, step by step. We'd start with a formal motion to revoke my death certificate, then open a fraud investigation into how it got filed in the first place. And finally, we'll go after the inheritance transfers. The documents were airtight. Everything was time-stamped, government sealed, signed in ink, stamped in blood mine. I wasn't just alive, I was unerasable. It took less than 48 hours for the story to start spreading. The funeral footage was already online. The headline read, "Woman declared dead by family crashes her own memorial service." Some thought it was fake. Some thought it was a hoax. But then came the court filing. Légal document don't lit. I didn't go into hiding. I didn't change my name again. I walked through the grocery store like I had every right to be seen. Because I did. People stared, whispered. Some looked away. Some smiled. And a few apologized. But I didn't need apologies. I needed accountability. The state launched an internal audit. Turns out the death certificate had been filed by a local notary who was no longer in practice. No forwarding address. No public record. Just a name, a stamp, and a lie. My parents, they didn't even flinch when questioned. We believed she was dead, my father said in a written statement. We were grieving. Grieving? They toasted at Elena's wedding. But the lie was falling apart. And the money? That was next. The trust fund that was once mine had been moved, split into new accounts under Elena's name. New investments, new business ventures, a down payment on a vacation home in Santa Fe, paid in full. Elena went silent on social media. No more spa selfies, no more brunch pics, just a black screen. But silence doesn't stop subpoenas. She was officially under investigation for benefiting from fraudulent documentation. The emails started rolling in. Family members I hadn't heard from in years. We had no idea. I always knew something felt off. Is there anything I can do? I didn't respond. Because the thing about betrayal is, once it happens, you stop waiting for people to be who they used to be. I wasn't out for revenge. I didn't want to see them rot. I just wanted the world to know. I was never the problem. I was the price they were willing to pay. To keep their image clean. To keep their golden child's hands free of dirt. But now it was all in the open. I stood in court the day they officially revoked my death certificate. The judge was stone-faced. The courtroom was silent. And I felt like I was finally exhaling after 3 years of holding my breath. She looked at me and said, "As of today, Maya Dekwa is hereby reinstated as legally alive and recognized by the state." A pause. "Welcome back." I smiled, not out of victory, but out of something deeper, peace. Outside, my lawyer shook my hand. Most people don't come back from something like this. I nodded. That's because most people don't know they can. And here's the truth. When your family tries to bury you with lies, you don't rise up with rage. You rise up with proof. You don't scream. You stand. And you don't just come back. You make sure they can't erase you again. People keep asking me the same thing. What will you do now? Will you sue them? Aren't you furious? How can you forgive that? And the truth is, I don't think they understand. This was never about revenge. Not really. It was about reclaiming something that should have never been taken in the first place. My name. My story. My voice. The day the paperwork went through when I became legally alive again, I didn't throw a party. I didn't scream in triumph. I didn't cry. I just stood in my apartment, sunlight falling through the window, dust dancing like little flecks of gold in the air, and I breathed. For the first time in years, I breathed without weight. I made tea, Saturday on the floor, watched the steam curl up from the mug. No court ruling, no viral video, no apology can give you back the years you lost. But what it can do is to give you back yourself. And that, my friend, is worth everything. They haven't called. Not my parents. Not Alina. Not one of them. I think, in their heads, I'm still dead. Just a ghost that got too loud. But ghosts don't need closure. They need peace. And peace doesn't come from them. It comes from me. I could have gone after every dollar. Could have made them bleed in court. Dragged their names through the mud the same way they did mine. But I chose something else. I chose the one thing they never expected me to have. Freedom. I left the country a week later. Boarded a plane with no one waiting on the other side. No plan. No map. Just a small suitcase. A new passport. And a quiet fire is still glowing in my chest. I landed in a city where no one knew my name. But I did. And for once, that was enough. Sometimes I walk past flower shops, see white lilies in the window, the same ones from the photo at the funeral, the one they used to bury me. And you know what? I smile now, because I'm not in that frame anymore. I'm not frozen in someone else's lie. I'm here. I'm moving. I'm writing new chapters. Maybe I'll start a new cafe. Maybe I'll work on a book. Maybe I'll just sit near the ocean and let the waves remind me how to be soft and strong at the same time. The future doesn't scare me anymore, because now, it's mine. And if you're listening to this, if someone ever made you feel like your story ended without warning, like your name could be stripped, your truth replaced, then let me say this. You're still here. You're still real. And your voice still matters. Sometimes you have to die in their world to be reborn on your own. And this time, I'm not coming back for forgiveness. I'm coming back for freedom.